Yo, what's happening is Len Davis with Pangiality Productions. I'm a filmmaker based in Seattle, Washington. This week I'm in New York City. And I'm here on the Lower East Side with an old friend of mine, Seth Carnes, who's working on a sweet initiative, a movement that I wanted to share with you. This is my brother, Seth. Namaste, Sati.
Namaste, namaste.
How's it going?
Good.
Sweet. So you lately have been involved in effort to do something new and make some changes. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
I got together with an artist friend here and a gallerist in New York, and we put together a petition urging Apple to create an art category on the App Store. And it's been about 8 years since the App Store has been up and running, and there's no art category since then. And there's been a growing number of art apps, like app artworks like mine and the artists that I'm working with, but there's also large institutions like the Louvre Museum, MoMA, and the Museum of Modern Art, and all these different sort of art-centered apps that are not represented there. So we're trying to just ask them to put it up there.
Nice. Let's just go basic to start with, which is,
Sure.
What is an app?
An app is a software application, but in this case, an app on iOS is something that exists in the iOS devices that are different ones, like the iPad, the iPhone, and you can download it on Apple's App Store if you have the device. So worldwide, like for example, my app Poetics is worldwide, so anyone in the world with an Apple device can go to the App Store and download the app. In my case, you can then use the application to make visual poetry, and with another app like Google Maps, you could find your way around the city to get down the block there. That kind of thing.
So as the App Store stands now, what are some of the typical categories that exist, and what is it that you're really trying to do here? And if you were successful, what would that look like?
Well, I think it's easier to talk about like art-centered apps now and where they sit. So for example, there's lifestyle, there's education, there's entertainment, and there's games, right? So you'll see some apps that are artistic or art-centered in those categories. So mine is in photos and video, and it just doesn't, while mine makes use of photos and it's part of the whole aspect of the app, it's also the function. You know, it's based on function, where the app for me is an artwork. So or like, I think MoMA, for example, is in the education category, and I can't speak for them, but I mean, because it's one of the biggest contemporary art museums in the world, I would guess that they'd probably prefer to have their center be art. And so that then not only is it identifying it for what it is and celebrating art and its function in human culture, but also people can find it. Just practically, you know, you can find it on the App Store because you're looking for art.
Nice. So you had this experience where, as an app developer and an artist yourself, you were looking for a more appropriate category for your own app and found that it didn't exist. And so what have you done now? What is it that your efforts involve to try and change that?
Well, I mean, as it turns out, I was operating on my own, making the app and running into that situation. You know, you go, oh, what's the category? There is no art category. And in meeting some of the other artists that had the same experience, everyone's had the same similar one. Like, where can I put it? I don't have anywhere to put it. And so in our conversations, it just came up, why don't we do something about it? We can ask Apple directly, which we have. And then we thought the public petition is a way for everyone to just go to the website, and if people agree, to just sign on, and, you know, not have it be at all contrary to Apple, but just to communicate to them that, you know, and help them maybe understand the context that it's not just.
What's happening, brother?
All right. Lower East Side, baby. That's how we roll. We have app artworks that we feel are not categories. So that's just a personal desire, but just on the broader channeling spectrum of society and culture, we want to just give voice for what we think is needed, especially in this situation where Apple has the most valuable company in the world. They have the biggest network of devices out there, and with art being a central part of human culture, it should be put together there. You know, that there's an art category for apps. If you're going to a museum, if you're looking for an artwork, you know, it should be in an art category, and that's just representative of it's almost like the App Store as a representation of human culture should have, we feel like, the category of art, because it's part of human culture.
Right.
So
who's on board so far? What kind of support are you finding when you engage people in talking about this topic? And tell me a little bit about the kind of reception that you get when you tell people what you're working on.
I mean, the main reaction is almost universal so far, and by the way, the petition just started, so it's really fresh. But the main reaction is, I can't believe that category doesn't exist already. Like, how is that even possible that it hasn't existed and it's not there? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's an interesting reaction. It was our reaction too. And the other thing, what was it? What was the question?
What kind of reception you get? How do people respond to your initial sort of saying, this is what I'm trying to do? Would you be willing to support me with your signature in trying to move this process forward?
It just started, so I can't answer that fully, but like the early supporters, for example, are Paul Miller, my friend who's known as DJ Spooky. He was on board instantly, been involved with digital arts and culture for years, decades. Postmasters Gallery, which is a big gallery that's also supported digital art and culture and artworks down in Tribeca. They're supportive. There's iBeam, which is a digital arts and technology center they've moved around, but they're in New York and supportive. So there's a lot of the sort of core arts and culture, digital technology sort of crossover organizations and people are getting on board.
Here in New York.
Yeah, here in New York, and I think even though we just soft launched the petition, I'm already getting emails from the West Coast. You can see there's a lot of interest there. I think San Francisco will be interested too.
And tell me a little bit more just about the ideas behind the way art is thought of and talked about and distributed and accessed in the world in terms of lacking this category and shifting perceptions or ideas about art's place in the world.
Yeah.
What are your ideas about how this petition sort of contributes to changing that, or what needs to change, or just this sort of place for art and culture and the way in which creating this category is indicative of another approach or another idea?
Yeah, I think, traditional art from the 20th century, right, is a lot of objects that were created, like sort of outputs by artists that are finalized and then sold in a gallery. And of course, this doesn't speak to like land art or things that were social sculpture and art movements that were not quite in the gallery. But the general idea of art, right, is that art is something I put in my home or I go to a museum and enjoy. And I think software and apps represent the new form of art that is more integrated within society and within not only an artwork, for example, that I made that makes poetry for me and I can use in art shows, but it's also then distributed, cloned, and downloaded all over the world. It's used not just for art, but in schools to teach, for example. So it's like this: we're working within the social medium with software, and it's interactive, right? It's always changing. Like we can change the code ourselves, and that app can then be put up online, and it's instantly moved around the world through servers. So all that, it's just a new way of looking at artistic experience, I think. So you have the artwork, and you can infinitely clone it, and it's just a different flow of the art experience. And I think that the apps represent it really well because everyone's got a phone.
Nice.
Everyone can look at it.
So the petition is on to get Apple to add an art category. Are there other categories that you're aware of or that you pay attention to that you think are missing as well?
One thing I thought of is there's no science category. It's kind of interesting. They have scientific related like technology, I think, or medical, I think, but it's interesting that science isn't in there. It's also this parallel of art.
Cool. Trip. So once again, it's Len Davis. I'm a filmmaker based in Seattle, Washington with Pangiality Productions. I'm here on the Lower East Side in Manhattan, New York City with my friend Seth Carnes.
Hey, everybody.
His app is called Poetics. It enables you to add poetry and text on top of photos and share it around the world. And his journey with that app has led him to realize that no art category on the Apple App Store, and created a petition and trying to build a movement worldwide to do it. So if you're into supporting that, sign the petition. Yeah, what is it?
The URL is artapp.org.
Nice.
Easy to remember.
That takes people the opportunity to sign the petition.
Yeah, you can go there and you can sign up and you can write a statement and we'll see it.
Okay. Thanks so much, brother.